It is Thursday evening just before a football game, and that means it's time for us to preview and predict the matchup at hand for this weekend. We're talking Auburn versus the Georgia Bulldogs, the Deep South's oldest rivalry. Let's get into it. Maybe we can help you make a better prediction come game time for this Saturday. War Eagle Auburn family, War Eagle E2C Network family, thank you so much for joining us, whether you're watching live, whether you're watching on the replay. We appreciate you being here, hanging out with us, spending some time being a part of our little family within the Auburn family. As we get started on the stream this evening, you can do a humongous favor to us. Make sure that you smash the like button if you enjoy this type of content, of course, if we feel like we've earned that from you. And as always, we'd love for you to start off the show, whether you're live, whether you're on the replay, start off by posting where you're watching from. Our check-in period, we want to know who's here, from where. I'm sure we may have some fans from Athens, Alabama. There is an Athens, Alabama. Athens, Georgia, checking in with tonight, and we would love to hear your commentary tonight. Typically, on Thursday nights, we open up the phone lines for the opposing fans to call in. Unfortunately, because of my setup tonight, we will not be able to do that. As you can tell, another different backdrop, another different setup. As I've told you, it's been an interesting time in the life of Kyle for all good reasons. But hopefully after this particular weekend, we will be on a more regular schedule back in E2C Network headquarters studio. But now you get to see me sitting in this kind of cool chair. I'm not going to lie. So I'm going to pull this down just a little bit because I feel like I'm not sitting too high up enough in the shot there. So that's what's on tap tonight. Thank you guys so much for your patience getting started tonight as well with the new location. Took a minute to get things properly set up. If there's any audio, if there's any video connectivity issues, please keep me posted throughout the stream. Only if you're watching live, of course, that can help me kind of monitor things as they go along in this new location. So how do we operate on a preview and prediction night? Typically what we do, and it's kind of worked well for us over the last couple of weeks, is we're going to walk through some discussion about the game, facts to know about what game time, all that kind of stuff, the series as a whole, the history behind it. And then we're going to start talking a little bit about the matchup by not just offering up predictions for the score. We do want those, just hold those to the end. We're going to walk through different scenarios, rushing yards for Auburn, rushing yards allowed, passing yards for Auburn, interceptions, special teams things. We're going to try to give you a better informed opinion about what your score prediction should be tonight. Not based necessarily on solely what I think, but what the collective thinks here at E2C Network. So thank you guys for being here and for participating in that this evening. I see a lot of fine people that I already know checking in with us. Linda, David, Tyler, Dakota, Devin, all checking in early and often. We appreciate you guys so much. Looks like we had a few people stop by a little bit earlier, expecting us to be here on time. But as I said, we were a little bit delayed tonight. We're going to get into it. So obviously, if you've got comments and questions, we'll bring them up on the screen as they're appropriate to the discussion that we're having. And we'll go from there. So if you've got any kind of initial opening thoughts about Auburn versus Georgia, we're going to entertain those right now. But let's talk about the facts behind the matchup right now, what the things that we need to know. Now, this matchup is going to be, of course, a midday matchup for Auburn versus Georgia. I know that we were all hoping for that nighttime game. Unfortunately, with the CBS contracts, the best SEC game of the week tends to be at 2:30. Will that change with the ESPN model? I don't know. Seems to work pretty well for CBS, so it would not shock me to see them continue that. So that is the beauty and travesty of being one of the best rivalries in college football, is the fact that CBS wants this, no matter how good one team may be over the other. Speaking of which, the Georgia Bulldogs come in ranked number 1, having been not necessarily tested all that much, but still no reason to think that they're not the best team in the nation right now. At least that's not been proven yet. The Auburn Tigers come in 3-1 after losing to Texas A&M with a lot of questions on the table. 2:30 kickoff. You can watch it on CBS. Obviously going to be a little bit warmer than we've been used to the last home games. So if you're coming to the game, make sure you dress and prepare accordingly. I will be doing the same as well. I am super excited about this matchup. I'll be honest with you. Every single year, I look forward to the Auburn versus Georgia matchup. I think a lot of you do as well, mainly for the hatred reasons of the rivalry. I don't necessarily hate Georgia. I think a great way to say it, if I can remember how he said it, we had Randy from A Damn Beast Media on this week, and I was fortunate enough to be a guest on his channel as well, and their platform for Georgia Bulldogs, discussing this game this week. So please do check him out if you're interested in kind of a holistic view of the college football, the college sports experience, and not just an Auburn one, if you're going to kind of check some other great quality content creators out. He said, I'm okay with Auburn, but I won't say that I like them much. I'm probably butchering what he said there, but basically kind of sentiment of what I was saying there. When it comes to game time, it's on, baby. It is on. But outside of that, I value the history, the specialness of this relationship uniquely to the Iron Bowl, but in some ways more than the Iron Bowl because of all the connective tissue that is intertwined for these two teams. Point no further than Vince Dooley and Pat Dye. Vince Dooley played for Auburn, went on to be a great head coach for Georgia. Pat Dye played for Georgia, went on to be a great head coach for Auburn. If you want to see the, ferocity in this rivalry, all you need to watch is game day. But if you want to see the unique, almost brotherly bond between these two schools, and brothers do fight, I can guarantee you that, you need to look no further than the memorial service that they had for Pat Dye, where Vince Dooley attended, and see how special a moment that was there. So special bond, equal ferocity. We look forward to this one every year. Just wanted to kind of share my thoughts about that. Dakota check-in. Oh, I said hi to Dakota. Sorry about that. Dakota does say, key to our offense is when will our quarterback become more consistent? I think that is the easiest scapegoat in the world to go to, is when will the quarterback become more consistent? But then you have to ask the question, how does the team as a whole become more consistent? It's not just the quarterback play. And oftentimes, how does the quarterback become more consistent if he's got great support around him? Case in point, a lot of these Alabama quarterbacks that you've seen over the year. No offense, Greg McElroy. No offense, A.J. McCarron. No offense, Blake Sims. No offense. I'm blanking on one. But there have been John Parker Wilson. Decent quarterbacks, but if you don't put them behind an Alabama defensive line and with those wide receivers, they're not that good. And that kind of translate over into the NFL. Now you got just freaks of nature like Tua Tagovailoa, then you see what kind of happens there. It's kind of the Cam Newton effect. When they're just freaks of nature at quarterback, they're going to find ways to utilize their talent. But if you put a quarterback back there who's just average, above average, with great support around them, it's going to start clicking. So it's much deeper than when will the quarterback become more consistent. What do we as a team, what do we as an offense, what do we do, what do we as play callers, what can we do to be better support of the Auburn quarterback, no matter who it is? And Coach Free has talked about that a lot this week. Big Simp talking about our stream with our Georgia guy, Randy. He's way blinder than I thought. Georgia is beatable. He was a Georgia homer. No, he is not. I will guarantee you that. And if it doesn't come across in our interview, I would highly, highly, highly recommend that you check him out. Quality individual. Really, really glad we connected this week and getting to know him. He would probably say the same thing about you and I, Big Simp. We are all homers for our teams. And there's a reason that he is confident about the Georgia Bulldogs getting the win, but maybe even beating the Tigers more than we'd like to admit. We'll break it down in just a little bit. Tyler says it's going to be ugly. It's going to get ugly, and it's going to get ugly quick, unfortunately. I think that is the prevailing theme and prevailing thought about this game. However, people said that about the 2021 Iron Bowl. People have said that about several other teams that you could say about Auburn. Magic happens in Jordan Hare. Prayer in Jordan Hare is none the least of which. It's going to be a special day. They're honoring the 1983 team, the team that should have claimed a national title with Bo Jackson beating Michigan in the Sugar Bowl. Miami jumps them. Explain that one to me. I don't know. It's going to be a fun day. And I don't think if it does get ugly, it won't get ugly till late, because that defense is going to feed off that crowd. If you're there, help us out, right? Linda pointing out that Jalen Simpson and Cam Stutz were on Tiger Talk, and they were fired up. Hugh said today was a great day of practice. A lot of the times, and I would say really all the time, it's how you respond to adversity that defines you, and not necessarily the adversity that you ran into, that you faced, what it did to you. How you respond is differently. And if they're responding the way it sounds like on Tiger Talk in practice this week, this can be used to galvanize for a very remarkable season, or just a season that meets expectations but has some great moments here. I would say this is a big week for Auburn, not necessarily just because we want to win against Georgia, but because we need to find some footing after last week's showing. It was ugly, and I agree with Tyler in this comment. If what happens last week happens this week at home, it's going to get even uglier. Zach says, I'm interested to see the offense now that Hugh Freeze said he's going to be taking more of a hand in things. Did he say that specifically? I may have missed. I listened to the press conference on Monday, the press conference on Wednesday. I did not listen to Tiger Talk. As you can tell, I'm on the road. I don't know that he said that specifically. He said he is struggling to not get involved. And I think that's a very honest and candid answer. But I don't necessarily think that he said that he was going to get more involved. Hughes, okay, here we go. Linda says Hughes said he has been more involved in the play calling for this game. 90 recruits expected. Two different little comments there. That's another big thing. There's a lot of things happening with this game this week. It's the big CBS game of the week. It's the Deep South's oldest rivalry. It's the celebration of the 1983 Auburn football team. It is a huge recruiting weekend for Auburn. It is a much needed bounce back. There's a lot riding on this game. A lot. Zach says that Georgia is garbage in the first half. Now, if you listen to my discussion with Randy, whether it was on the video that we did or you visited his channel when I was fortunate to be a guest over at Damn Beast Media, he expressed similar sentiments that it takes the offense a little bit of time to get going, but when they do, it's pretty good. And that's really the key here. This is an Auburn defense that has shown its ability to be able to surprise people this year about how strong of an asset it is to this team. Not to say that it was going to be a weak part of the team, but we didn't know what a Ron Roberts defense was going to look like. We knew we had some athletes, especially at the defensive back group. We didn't know how injuries might pan out, and they've not panned out great thus far. But overall, I think that's the big shining light this year is the defense thus far. So that playing into the fact that maybe Georgia is a little bit slower to get going in an away scenario, their first big away game, the first one in general, I think, could be a huge thing for Auburn. I don't have CBS. Thanks, Uverse. I didn't know. It seems like everybody is having viewing issues these days. Noah points out, if our offense can score and our defense can get turnovers, we have a chance, but the offense ain't going to get it going, in my opinion. Let's hope you're wrong. Let's hope you're wrong. All right. I keep kind of trying to, just got done eating and having a little bit of, holding that back there. Here, we'll take this question and then we'll move into some facts, some stats to look at for each team. That's going to start informing some of our discussions that we're going to have. And what is your opinion on how the game plan is going for Thorne? I know Hugh said he thought it was good against Texas A&M, but maybe they need to change it to suit Thorne better. Just curious. What is your opinion on how the game plan is going for Thorne? Not exactly sure what you're asking with that question. I know Hugh said he thought it was good. It was good against Texas A&M. He thought the game plan was good against Texas A&M. So if that's the case, then the execution was just very poor, right? I don't know. Unfortunately, Devin, I think I'm misunderstanding your question just a little. Maybe you can clarify for me and I can come back to it. But yeah, give me a little bit more clarification about what specifically you want said there. Neil, good to see you. Thanks for checking in with us. All right. While maybe she's giving me some clarification, let me share my screen with you all, and we are going to actually bring it up this way. Want you guys to look at what I'm looking at here. We're looking at ESPN's page. Can't get rid of all the advertisements and stuff because, hey, we're using ESPN's page, but alas. Obviously, 4-0 Georgia, 3-1 Auburn, 230. We've talked about that. Here is your matchup predictor. 82% favor the Georgia Bulldogs. Sounds about right. You see on ESPN, the tickets are as low as 95. They're going much higher, even on the fee-based places. I would highly recommend, if you're buying tickets, to be very careful. This seems like there's a lot of warnings being put out about counterfeit tickets for this game. High prices mean higher chance, usually, of someone trying to make a quick buck and take advantage of you. So be very, very careful. That's why I bought my tickets early. Game time weather tomorrow, 79 degrees. That actually looks a little bit more favorable because I think by the time we hit halftime, it's supposed to be in the upper 80s. So I hope it stays there if that's going to be our game time temperature. Your line is set at 42 or minus 42 in favor of Georgia, over under 45.5. So Georgia's favored by 2 touchdowns and then 45 total points between the teams. What do you guys think about those lines? Let me know. A few more things here, then we'll get back to some of your comments and questions. You can see the passing leaders here. Carson Beck, their quarterback, 93 of 128. Over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns, only 1 interception. Might change this game, facing a defensive back group like Auburn. And then you compare that to Peyton Thorne's stats. It does not even compare. He knows it. The coaches know it. We don't need to sit here and harp on it. Not good stats at all, but hopefully that improves. Rushing yards and rushing leaders for Georgia. Edwards, only 184 yards thus far. 3 touchdowns. Jarquez Hunter with 143. So both teams have not had the most stout starts in terms of their rushing leaders. Will that change this game? Possibly. Receiving yards, of course, Bowers is their leader with 250 yards. Jay Fair continues to be Auburn's most favored target with 183 and 2 touchdowns. Fair versus Bowers, Jarquez versus Edwards, Thorne versus Beck. Some matchups, even though they're on the same sides of the ball, but to see who wins that overall matchup is something that you want to keep in mind. So let me bring all of this back to the forefront here, and let's get to some of your discussions about these things. Noah's asking, are we getting Pritchett back Saturday? I don't know that for a fact. I don't know that Hugh necessarily, unless some of y'all know anything from Tiger Talk, shared anything that definitively took him in or out, but I do remember him saying, or it being said by those who were able to attend practice, that it seemed like everybody that was kind of on that iffy injury report that wasn't a long-term injury was out there practicing. Take that for what you will. Cody says, Georgia is trash. I've seen how they played against UAB and struggled they struggled till the second half. Then they finally fired off well. But I like Auburn's chances against the Dogs. I don't know if I'd go as far to say they're trash, Cody, because you better be careful with that, because if they whoop us, what does that make us if they're trash? I'm all for a little fun rivalry, but be very, very careful with that. Devin, this is answer to Devin's question, said that they're running more RPOs and he's going to have a heart attack. Here's Devin's clarification. Hugh talked about being better at setting up the offense for success. I would like to think that would include a different game plan, one that would call plays better suited to Thorne's talent to be continued. For example, thank you for the B to be continued. Carson Beck has not thrown many long passes. Most of his throws are short or behind the line, so maybe they just aren't calling plays that Thorne can execute well. I'm going to give you the answer that I've been given a lot over the last couple of days. You can make the greatest game plan in the world for your quarterback, but if the other layers of that offense can't execute, it doesn't really amount to the hill of beans. So the offensive line's got to protect. The receivers got to catch the ball. The biggest thing that continues to boggle my mind is that we're still running routes wrong, apparently. That's brought up a lot, or misaligned. That's defense mainly. This seems like there's this running theme on the wide receiver front, tight end front, maybe the receiving tight end front, that we're not in the right positions. We're not running the right routes, which is very concerning that that's still happening. And you've heard this discussion about terminology being a little bit worried about mixing that up if he were to get into the mix more in terms of the play calling, whether you buy into that or not. So that's an interesting thing there. So do they change the game plan? Yeah. You changed the game plan because it didn't work last game. Now, it didn't work against Texas A&M. Maybe it works better this week if you fine-tune some things and clarify where things went wrong. To me, I think you're going to see a drastically different, drastic vocabulary to use there. I don't even think it really comes down to Thorne. I think they're going to really work hard to establish that run to build the comfort for Thorne. I'd like to see them do a few more short passes, like you pointed out with Carson Beck. That would be ideal. But if they're not there, they're not there. So to me, again, I'm not trying to shuck the question, but it is still, I'm going to continue to push this narrative because I believe it to be true. That the problems lie more so with the offense as a whole, and rather than Thorne and the quarterback position at this moment. Game after game, we may learn a little bit more. Neil says Beck ain't Bennett, hoping the defense can keep pressure on Beck all day. Yeah, for whatever reason, Stetson Bennett, especially against Auburn, was just the moxie machine, and just we couldn't rattle him. We just couldn't. Hopefully that changes against Carson Beck. First big away game in a hostile environment. It's going to be a little bit more challenging for him, I think. Dakota says we should pick one and stick to one quarterback. Multi-quarterback really never has worked. Don't know that that's necessarily true to quarterback. I tend to agree. I don't like switching in and out. However, let's look back at Texas A&M. If you don't switch with Robbie, with that type of pass rush that was getting through, you're really limiting your chances because we weren't really protecting the quarterback. So you got to put a more mobile guy in there who can make some plays with his feet. It's really what it amounts to. I think I've hit most of the questions there. If I didn't hit something that you guys want to discuss, we'll come back to it or bring it back up. But let's start moving into our overall big discussions about this game. We have looked at some of the storylines going into this. We've talked through some of those things, but now I want to get you all's feedback. I want to talk about some scenarios that will lead to a score prediction. So hold that till the end. We will get there. But let's start here with the offense. Again, I do not want your score prediction, but I want you to think about this question. We're going to have several of these in offense, defense, and special teams. For offense first, on a game in Jordan-Hare Stadium against the Georgia Bulldog defense, which is very stout, how many points do you think will be scored by Auburn? Not the score overall for the game, but just how many points do you think Auburn is capable of scoring in that scenario? I just realized I didn't give you guys all the information that you need. So while you're thinking about that, writing your response, let me bring this back up on the screen for you. And we'll look at some team stats here. And you can also see who Auburn has played, who Georgia has played, UAB, South Carolina, Ball State, Tennessee Martin. So really they have played, I wouldn't say nobody, but South Carolina ain't much of somebody. I'm going to stir the South Carolina. Did y'all know that I stirred the South Carolina fans up earlier this offseason? It was pretty entertaining. All right. So I'm going to just read these off again, but we'll use these to inform the rest of our discussions. Total yards for Georgia, 496, so 500. 371 for Auburn. 337 passing yards for Georgia, 159 rushing. Pretty even for Auburn, 173 to 197. Yards allowed. This is where we really want to look. Georgia's allowing 282. Auburn's allowing 298. Pretty even. Passing yards allowed by Georgia, a little bit more, quite a bit more than their rush yards. And then Auburn, close to even, and are starting to allow a few more passing yards now after the last game, whereas that was the strong suit for them in the first couple of games. But still pretty even, a very well-rounded defense. And I just took the ESPN thing off the screen without thinking about it. So hopefully we don't need that again. So, how many points do you think Auburn is capable of scoring? Think about that in terms of touchdowns, of field goals, those type of things. Auburn's going to score. How often? I don't know. Auburn is going to score some points. Will it take a minute for it to get going? Will they ride the energy wave of being in Jordan-Hare? That's kind of what I'm thinking. This feels like a scenario where Auburn may be able to get a lead first and maybe even kind of hold a Georgia at bay for the first quarter, moving into the second quarter. Maybe by halftime it's tied up or Georgia's taking a lead. That's kind of where I'm sitting right now with this scenario. So I do think that Auburn's going to score multiple touchdowns. I do think that they'll score multiple field goals. I would say right now my point percentage is somewhere in the 20 point range for Auburn in this game. That's kind of what I've been thinking. Auburn's offense scores 17. Neil says 9, so he's going for 3 field goals. Ants Den says capable of scoring 28 to 35. A little bit more optimistic there. 15 on offense, 2 running, 1 field goal. Neil points out we couldn't score against Texas A&M's defense. Pretty stout in one area there. So just because it's Texas A&M doesn't mean we can't do it against Georgia. Doesn't seem like that might be the case, but you never know how things match up. 3 points on offense, 14 points on defense is what Big Simp is hoping for. Hey, I don't care how they happened, but I was really asking about the offensive points, but points overall for Auburn. So based on what we're all talking about here, what we're looking at, most of you all are considering it in the low range for Auburn in the, we'll call it somewhere in the 15 to mid 20 ranges, kind of trying to average all that in a very crude format, which is kind of where I find myself on the upper end of that scale. Let's do the next question. How many, all right, here we go. This is where we're going to have some fun. How many passing yards and touchdowns for Auburn against Georgia? Again, I'm asking your predictions here on this scenario. How many passing yards, whether it's Thorne, Ashford, a mixture of the two, Holden, how many passing yards and touchdowns for Auburn against Georgia? If you look back, they were a little bit more susceptible to the passing game. So was Texas A&M, but I would say that we couldn't even get to that susceptible defensive back unit. Will it happen against Georgia? Doesn't seem all that much, does it? But maybe. Maybe things will be a little bit different. How many passing yards and how many touchdowns? And let me just say this, folks. Let's be serious about it. I know a lot of everybody is down in the dumps about this. If you truly think that we're not going to score or have more than 100 passing yards, that's fine. But I don't want. I'm not going to do 20. I mean, come on. We're going to get more than 20 passing yards. 1 passing touchdown, 145. We will have Jalen Hurts as Cannon. Interesting. Bama fan? Or is he an Eagles fan? We'll have 150 passing yards on Saturday, maybe 1 passing touchdown. Linda, very hopeful, 297. 68, not very hopeful. I think we're going to do more than that. 90. 155. So you can see it really is all over the place on what people are predicting here. Thorne had 44 against. Again, Neil, this Texas A&M versus Georgia. Teams match up differently. So with the passing yards, it's probably going to be on the low side, right? I think we all are going to sit here. Linda, you were very hopeful about it, and I hope you get to scream in our faces next week when we're back together or after the game on our post-game stream, which we'll do. So I hope you guys can join us for that. How wrong we all were. But I think it'll be on the low side. I do think that we will break 100 yards. I like the prediction in the 150 range. I think that's very attainable. And really, when you're talking about this passing defense right now, it's completely fine to temper your expectations. Going on below 100 passing yards with an offensive-minded coach of Hughes caliber, and Phillip too, our OC, That's an anomaly until proven otherwise. So I really think we're going to be able to score much, much more than that. Jalen Hurts says, I'm an Auburn and an Eagles fan. Well, I will admit this, and I said this on the stream the other day. I know it's not related, but I'm going to. My fantasy team, I picked Jalen Hurts, and my rule of thumb is I never, ever predict or take a Alabama player. I didn't break my rule. He ended up at Oklahoma in his final thing. So I stand by what I said. Let's see here, 148. So here's what I'm going to predict: 150 and 1 touchdown. I know that's copying what a lot of you guys said there, or some of you said. I'm looking for what's attainable right now and what should be the expectation. And I think right now, in a week where we're all coming off a real frustrating low after Texas A&M with this offense, setting the expectation where it seems like it's likely to be met is the healthy thing for all of us to do as Auburn fans. So low bar, not stupidly low. You know you're being stupidly low if you're being stupidly low. Come on. 150, 1 touchdown, I think is fair. If you want to go a little bit lower than that, that's fine. But we're going to break 100 yards. And I will be the first one to admit I was wrong on the post-game stream. And you can laugh and point at me on that one when we're wrong. All right. Rushing yards. A little bit more probably optimism about this. In fact, I would say that Auburn really needs to make a point this week to make a punch with the run game. Does anyone disagree with that? I think we're all a little bit down about the passing game, more so on the passing than the receiving. But the run game really needs to get going this week. And when I say get going, not to say that it hasn't done anything yet. I think it's done less than we thought it would. But we need to have a more traditional, a more sound running game that we're used to with Auburn football. So how many rushing yards and touchdowns for Auburn do you think? Damari Alston seems to be out right now, last time I checked, which means Jarquez can take the bulk of the carries. Jeremiah Cobb, a fan favorite, will probably get some more action. Sean Jackson will probably get some action Jackson. And, of course, Brian Battie, who is probably the pleasant, I want to say surprise because he's been around, but surprise of the running game last week. So how many rushing yards and touchdowns do you think Auburn is capable of getting in this game? What do you think? How many rushing yards and touchdowns? To me, for Auburn to win this game, and that's what I'm really thinking about, you're going to have Auburn get multiple rushing touchdowns, whether it's by a running back, whether it's by a quarterback. We know we can do both. Both quarterbacks, main quarterbacks, can do it as well. We know Peyton can use his legs pretty decently. I think 2 rushing touchdowns is required. I think 3 is going to be needed to give Auburn a chance to win this game. Big Sip says 120. We will do great on rushing, Mr. Beautiful says 211, 3 touchdowns rushing. Jalen Hurts says 200 rushing touchdowns, 6 yards per carry from the running back specifically, and 1 touchdown. 225, Cobb over 100.3 rushing yards. So very specific. No, 3 rush touchdowns. I got it now. When you predict, I thought you were predicting, Timothy, 100.3 rush yards. I was like, that is the most oddly specific prediction I have seen yet. That is interesting. 110, 0 touchdowns. You really think we're not going to score any rushing touchdowns? 188, 178, 110, 2 touchdowns. Stan, good to see you. So I'm going to predict that we break 200 rushing yards, which when you combine that with our passing yards that I was predicting at least 150, you're sitting at about a 350 yards per game situation. Is that enough for Auburn to win the game? Probably not, but it feels like it's attainable, right? It does feel like it's a little bit attainable. 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. Again, I think 2 touchdowns is required for Auburn to win this game. Rushing touchdowns, 3 is really what you got to have, though. So there's the rushing aspect of the game. Now let's answer the question. Who is going to be the top rusher for Auburn football in this particular game? Who's going to be Auburn's top rusher? We know it won't be Damari. Phone was just blaring. Jarquez will probably get a lot more carries, so that might be your conventional wisdom. Will it be a Robbie Ashford? Will Peyton Thorne have his magic again at home and be the leading passer and rusher? Probably not, is what most people would say. But who's going to be Auburn's best rusher in this particular game? Jalen Hurts. Cannon, that just feels weird to say every time. Did you know that UGA has allowed 10 rushing touchdowns since 2017? It's a good stat to bring up. Makes it a little bit iffy for us. But I do think that we will hopefully make that average go up a little bit for them. UGA DL not as good as Texas A&M. I can't remember what Randy said this week, if he said the pass rush was suspect or not. Maybe he did. Yes, he did, because I remember pointing out that seemed to be the opposite of Texas A&M. So that should bode well, not just for quarterbacks, but for the running game as well. So Batee, a lot of Batees. Hunter, Cobb. I see a couple of Cobbs. Batee, Cobb. Big Simp. I'm hoping Thorne and Hunter, good things will happen if that happens, if they're the leading rushers, I guess. I'm pleasantly surprised to see the amount of you that are giving Brian Batee the nod here. I think he earned a lot of respect in this last game. So it would be nice to see him kind of surprise everybody again. My gut says it's going to be Hunter. But yeah, my gut says it's going to be him. I do agree with Neil that not just talking about Auburn's offense or defense, but yes, turnovers are going to be huge in this game. When you're going up against a number one team, whether you agree they should be number one or not, they're still number one right now, so you can't argue with that. At home, especially, it's more important on the road, I would say, but when you're going up against a team like this, winning the turnover battle, which Auburn's been doing for the most part, is going to be a huge thing. Lack of mental errors. You could all these little small things that Auburn can do to set itself up for a much better scenario, to be in a better position to win the game, are going to be huge. All right, final prediction here on offense. Who's going to be our top receiver in this game? Again, I know we're all down about receiving and the quarterbacks. I get it, but let's play the game. Who's going to be the top receiver in this game? If you think that only means 20 yards for a receiver, I'm still asking the question, who do you think is going to be the top receiver for Auburn football in this game? Rivaldo's been a guy at times. Jake Fair's been a guy at times. Will it be? We kind of really need a third guy to step up and really make some noise. Shane Hooks has seemed like that might be him at times. Maybe this is that moment for him. See a couple of people already dropping in Hooks' name. Hooks, Jair Shorter. Trying to make sure I don't miss everybody's predictions here. But yeah, so I think Hooks I would love to see him be that third guy. Usually when you see these great teams, they've got not just one great receiver, not just two, but like in the 3 to 4 range. Think about some of those Alabama teams, Hooks and Fairweather. So I'd like to see that become more of a prevalent thing here, because right now, and then Fairweather's obviously a tight end. Because right now, everybody's keying off of Fairweather and Fair. We need that third guy to really become a threat for people to make it a interesting thing for them. Jeremiah Cobb will get the most receiving yards, just a random prediction. Now, it's not a bad prediction. In fact, I think I or someone else predicted Brian Batee would do that against Texas A&M, and he ended up doing better rushing, but the thought process was good that he would be more involved, right? A tight end. Yeah, maybe. So there you go. All right, so that's the offensive predictions. We started late and we're getting behind, so we're going to try to move a little bit quicker here. unless I have things that I want to discuss. Defense. How many points will Auburn allow? Not your score prediction, but just thinking about the scenario of how much of a threat Georgia's offense may or may not be. They tend to get off the slow starts, it seemed. Most hostile environment that they'll run into this year so far against Auburn. Pretty good defense against Auburn. They're more proficient passing. The DBs for Auburn seem to be one of their strong suits. How many points do you think that Georgia will be able to score? Think about it in terms of touchdowns and rushing touchdowns, passing touchdowns, things like that. And of course, you can think about defensive touchdowns if you fear that that is going to happen. I think it's unfortunately a guarantee that they're going to score at minimum 4 touchdowns in this game. So you can already kind of see where I'm heading with my score prediction, right? At minimum, I think they're going to score 4 touchdowns offensively. I'm not saying that they're going to score a defensive touchdown, but 28 points on the board for Georgia throughout the course of this game is very doable in my mind, based on what we know right now. I'm feeling like it's going to be more than that, but that's just kind of how I'm feeling that somebody's close to what I was going to predict overall. 24, 32, 20, 38, 21 to 31. What a range. Rodney, good to see you. 20 points, 4 turnovers for Georgia. As Neil said, it will be huge. 27. Most we will give up is 31. Least we've given up, we will give up is 13. Prediction 19. Kind of, it's not really splitting the difference, but on the lower end of that difference. 20 to 31 points. If they score 4, they win. And that's kind of why I said it the way I said it, Stan. I think you maybe picked up on that. I say 4 touchdowns is a given, and I'm not sure Auburn can match that 28 points based on what we know right now. Are they capable of doing that? Sure. But based on what we know right now, I don't think that I can comfortably say that they can match that 28 points. So you kind of see where I'm going, right? 30. So a couple more predictions there. Okay, let's keep moving. How many passing yards do you think that Georgia's going to have in this game, and how many passing touchdowns? Same kind of deal we did with our offense. Just think about it. What's our defense going to hold them to? Their strong suit seems to be their passing game, which is really odd. Samford, Texas A&M, and Georgia, UMass, and I can't remember if I think Cal's running game was a little bit more potent. So that would stand to reason that our best against their best, who wins that matchup? How does that shake out in terms of yards per game, yards for the game, and touchdowns? What do you guys think? 202. Kirby will try to run first in this game, sure, but we're asking about passing yards right now. We'll get to that one. Georgia's going to run into a buzzsaw. I hope so. I really do hope so. And then Neil says maybe Bobo will screw up the play calling. Well, he did sometimes with us, so one can certainly hope. You got a question for me? What about the Kirby Smart versus Hugh Freeze matchup? Well, I think that's kind of what we're talking about, right? What are you asking for something specific there? Give me a little bit more detail, what you want to know there. So in my eyes, oh, that's what he's asking. What's the matchup history? I think this is what Neil was answering here. Coach Freeze is 1-0 against Kirby. That's what you're asking. There you go. 220, 2 touchdowns. I think that they will definitely break 200 passing yards, probably 250. We've been giving up a little bit more lately. Maybe, and that's mainly because of some injuries that have been happening. And I think that is going to be a little bit of an Achilles heel for Auburn throughout this season, unfortunately. So I think they push 300 passing yards, probably to, you know what? I'm just going to say 1 passing touchdown. I think they get most of theirs on the ground. And not because they have an outstanding run game, but I could see them passing their way down to the red zone, to the end zone, and then or right at the goal line and then punching it in right there, even if we are a formidable force there. 156, 1 touchdown, 273. There you go. So Jalen and Eugene will keep Beck on his back. Hopefully so. Hopefully Jalen picks him off and makes that interception rate go up. So there you go. Some quick thoughts about that. Let's keep moving. Rushing yards for Georgia. How many do you think that they're going to have? How many rushing touchdowns? Give me your thoughts and breakdown of that. A few more questions and defense to ask, and we'll probably quickly go through special teams. But right now, how many rushing yards for Georgia? How many rushing touchdowns for Georgia? What's your prediction? I just said I think the majority of their points will come from rushing, not necessarily their yards. They had what? 300 and almost 70, 300, was it that high? In passing yards, maybe it was 340 or something on the lower end. But definitely more passing yards than rushing yards. My gut is telling me they'll probably be close to 200 rushing yards as a group. I can't remember if Carson Beck's got wheels or not. I think he does. I can't remember. I think 3 rushing touchdowns are going to happen, unfortunately, and not because they just blew big explosive plays. It's just the nature of getting down there. 175, 1 touchdown, 220, 234. There you go. A couple more of these predictions here. 3 rushing touchdowns. Tim points out that we are stout against the run. I don't know that we can say that we're stout yet. We've done well enough against the run, even with a Georgia team that tends to this season be more pass proficient so far. They are traditionally a great offensive line, traditionally a great running game, can get it going. So they'll probably establish that at some point with a strong prediction. 85 rush yards and 1 touchdown. And it's our friend Randy. Good to see you, Randy. As you can see, not in the normal studio tonight, on the road. Guys, please do go check out Randy and his Georgia Bulldogs channel. Really enjoyed our conversation with him this week on our channel, but of course he was gracious enough to have me on his outlet, and it was very much appreciated. So if you are wanting a well-rounded college football experience and not just have our orange and blue glasses on, please do go give them a look. Really recommend them. So thanks for stopping by and saying hello to us tonight. We're hashing it out right now and trying to understand what we should anticipate in this game tonight. So let's keep plugging right along. We're getting a little bit further behind. So we've talked about passing yards and touchdowns, rushing yards and touchdowns, predictions for Georgia. Who is going to be the top tackler for Auburn in this game? What is your gut telling you? This is a Georgia team statistically that is a little bit more, if I remember correctly, more proficient in the passing game. That might tell you that there would be some more opportunities for some defensive backs to make some tackles, what would move them up into the category of who is the leading tackler. I would argue that if they are, that means that they're completing more passes, unless we're just blitzing some safeties night and day, or a nickelback night and day. That's a little bit more troublesome. So I'm going to predict and I'm going to hope that we're talking about a linebacker. Eugene Asante has been the star so far this year and seems like the easy pick there. In fact, I won't say linebacker. I'm going to say the edge rusher. Jalen McLeod, I can't remember if he's healthy or not. But whoever's running the edge, Elijah, Jalen, I think they're going to have a pretty, whether it's a big day relatively or not, they're going to be the leading tackler for Auburn. Let's see here. What's everybody's thinking? Asante, Eugene, Asante, Marcus Harris, right here. Asante Simpson. Seems like everybody is going that route. Linda, thanks for stopping by. We appreciate you being here. And yes, go study up on the Tiger Talk. Obviously, good information from that always. Puckett for tackling. Zion Puckett prediction. That is interesting. Falk second in tackles, maybe. he is definitely rising. He's a player to be watching on the defense. All right. Final predictions within the defense. How many sacks, how many fumbles, how many interceptions? So those special categories, not the tackles, not the rushing yards, passing yards, and touchdowns allowed, but those big impact moments in the game for Auburn's defense that they are going to have to take advantage of. Neil pointed it out earlier on that we are going to have to create those opportunities, that we're going to have to win the turnover battle. How many of those things do you see happening? I'd like to think with the crowd behind them, with Georgia's biggest test of the year thus far at Jordan-Hare Stadium, that things will get a little bit hairy for hairy for them at times, and we'll get a few sacks off of them. So, I could see us getting somewhere in the range of 3 sacks throughout the course of the game. I think that's a fair prediction. It would behoove you to predict an interception for Auburn in this game. That's not necessarily a reflection on Georgia, more so a reflection on the fact that we have been so good at interceptions this year outside of last game, which technically that fumble that Eugene Asante picked up, you could make an argument was kind of an interception, but statistically it will not be written that way. All right, let's look at some of y'all's predictions. My voice is about to go, guys. Too much talking this week. 7 sacks, 2 fumbles. So you guys can see some of these as I bring them up on the screen. I think for Auburn to win this game, they're going to have to create at least 2 turnovers. They really need 3. It's kind of that rushing touchdown scenario I said. They're going to have to get 3 rushing touchdowns to really secure themselves an opportunity to win this game. So there you go, some predictions right here. Randy says, I'm thinking 2 sacks, 1 interception. I can see Beck pushing the ball and taking a chance or 2. And that's kind of what I'm leaning on, Randy. Maybe not necessarily getting overly confident, Carson Beck. Maybe they start to get in their rhythm a little bit and they start to push things a little bit more downfield, as you kind of pointed out, as the steam gets rolling for a Georgia defense. And forgetting that one Jalen Simpson's back, not forgetting, but maybe being a little bit more careless, and Jalen Simpson steps in and takes one. DJ James, the one of our star corners, gets another one this year. I think chances are high that Auburn will get an interception at some point in the game. Will that 1 interception be enough? No. They're going to have to create another interception, a number fumble, and they're going to have to push those sack numbers high. Winning the turnover battle, creating havoc for them, like Texas A&M did to us last game, it's the only ticket to win right now. All right. We are way past our time. Again, late start tonight. Thank you guys for your patience, obviously, with having to be on the road tonight. So let's just discuss this really quickly, and then we'll get to the big question of the night. But special teams wise, what are you guys feeling? How many punts? If you want to answer that, please do. Obviously, 9 punts in the last game is not going to cut it. I think that if we're in the 3 to 4 punts range, that's fair enough. But anything past that is going to mean a bad day for the offense. How many field goals attempted and made do you think that's going to be? We are starting to get more confident with our kicker, Alec McPherson, even as young as he is. Great talent, pedigree, if you will, with his brother in the NFL now, and it seems to be living up to the hype. Still young, probably going to make some mistakes here, and we know he can kick it from distance and still be pretty dang accurate. And then do you think that there's going to be this elusive punt return or kick return that we've been waiting on? We have got great athletes. Brian Battie on kickoffs we've had, and now our punt returners, Coy Moore is now back there because of injuries, and that's not taking anything away from Coy Moore, but we know some of our bigger, well thought of athletes at that particular position have been out. So maybe if you're looking for something in this area, you're looking for a kick return for a touchdown. This would really help Auburn's case to be able to get a kick return or a punt return back for a touchdown. Neil says 10 punts. Well, then we've lost the game completely. Now everybody's getting ridiculous there. I can see them now. 5 to 6 punts, 3 for 3 on field goals. So solid day for Alec McPherson. 2 field goals. TD touchdown would be nice. No kick return, but a good punt return. Set up good position. And so that's the thing too. It doesn't necessarily have to be a touchdown, but setting up good field position. So like we talked about, winning the turnover battle, really putting the pressure on Carson Beck, and winning the field position game are going to be key for Auburn against a number 1 team like Georgia. Whether you think they should be or not, they should still have your respect until proven otherwise. No special teams touchdowns. All right. You've waited long enough. We've walked through the intangibles of this game. We've walked through the facts of what we know about game time, what's going on celebrating around the game, so what the energy might be like, the history of this game, the importance of this series, the importance of this rivalry. We've talked about the offense, yards. We've talked about touchdowns. We've talked about what will be allowed, what may not be allowed. We've talked about top tacklers, special teams. All of that now should help you better inform your score prediction. In the chat right now, I want to see yours, and then I'm going to cheat and give mine at the end. I'm surprised that more people don't get mad at me for doing it that way. It's not because I'm trying to steal y'all's predictions, but I just love to kind of build up the suspense that way. So your final score prediction, Auburn versus Georgia. Post it now, lock it in, so we can all look and see who is really right or really wrong. But the reality is, all of us are going to probably be pretty wrong. The majority of us will be pretty wrong. What is your big takeaway and your big score prediction? Don't just watch the game, see the game. Absolutely. So that's well said. Well said. Okay, keep your score predictions coming. We're going to look at a few of these, and then I'll offer mine. Excuse me. Like I said, my voice is going. Alex for the win, 23-20. Now, look, if Auburn's going to win the game, it's going to be that way, right? Somehow, some way, we keep Georgia on their heels in a lower scoring scenario. I would put that on the lower end of the score. The line's 45, I think. So that would be below the line. So I could see that scenario happening if it means an Auburn win. 32-9 for Georgia. 23-21, 28-27. It's a very fortuitous one. Not for Georgia, but 20-19, 37-20. Wow, what a bold prediction, Mr. Beautiful. You definitely, Randy, I think you're still there, can tell what territory you're in right now, right? With the predictions. 31-20, McPherson wins it. There you go. There you go. 24-13. I'm not sure who he meant. I'm assuming Auburn, since this is an Auburn channel. But I'm going to say this, folks. You kind of heard my thought process through some of those different areas of prediction. I think Georgia's guaranteed 4 touchdowns. I think most of them are going to be rushing, but not necessarily because their rushing game was stout. I think they got in position to score those rushing touchdowns at the goal line. So I'm feeling like it's going to be 38 Georgia, Auburn 23. So that's my final prediction. Georgia wins 38-23, and maybe the last couple of points for Auburn kind of come late. But that'll be my final prediction for this week, and I hope I'm wrong. But I think I probably even encouraged myself to give Auburn a few more points because it's at home, because as we get closer to the game time, I always get more optimistic, right? So that's me. Yes, cry away. Yes, and you should definitely go watch our chat on the channel. He was gracious enough to offer his prediction. 35-10, the Dogs, he says with that emoji. I predicted that you score 38, so I've given you more credit than you've given your Dogs. But you've also been very honest about your opinion of Auburn's offense, and that's fair. We've not given you much reason to think that we're going to do much more than that. But at home, in Jordan-Hare, magic happens, and the Dogs know that all too well. So I'm going to hope that magic at least makes this a game that's entertaining for the most part. I believe this team can find a way Even if it's not to win the game, make some magic. And I hope that you all, as Auburn fans, the majority of you that are watching, won't go into this just super pessimistic, but enjoy the game. It's going to be a fun day of celebration if you're at the game. You guys know the drill. Lots of content coming for you from campus, from us throughout the weekend. I will be on campus starting tomorrow, Saturday as well, of course, on game day. All the social media content you could want, experiences from campus, including at the game. Obviously, we're not going to be broadcasting the plays and stuff like that, but do our best to get the Eagle flight out to you and things of that nature. And of course, join us for Tiger Walk Live here on YouTube. Did I have that one ready for you guys? I did. Look at there. Kyle actually got something ready on time. The UGA live stream for Tiger Walk. And of course, our discussion right after the game. Well, I should say right after. It'll be probably about an hour to hour and a half after the game ends, as soon as Kyle can get back to his car and get everything set up, aka my mobile broadcast studio. Guys, it's been a fun stream. Thank you for your patience tonight. I'm sure the audio and video quality is not up to the standards you're used to here on this channel, but it is what we got to do when we're on the road. So I appreciate your patience and understanding, and I appreciate your participation in our little experiment every Thursday night. We appreciate our Georgia fans and content creators that were willing to stop by and participate in our discussion as well. Thank you to Randy specifically. And guys, it's going to be fun. Enjoy college football. We're 5 games into the season when Saturday arrives. It's going by quick. So even if you don't like the way it's turning out, boy, it'll be gone before you know it. So enjoy it while you got it. Thank y'all so much for being here. Smash that like button on the way out if you enjoyed the content and you feel like we've earned that this evening. And of course, thank you guys for being part of the greatest little family within the Auburn family. Till I talk to you again, War Eagle.